Yeah, I mean, you can never write off Tiger, right? People have tried to do that for the last 5, 8 years now, and that hasn't worked out for those people that wrote him off. Is it a tall task? Sure. He's 48 years old. Obviously, a ton of injuries. I do know he's a lot healthier than he was, say, 6 months ago. So never say never. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I wouldn't be surprised or shocked either if he won another one and maybe got to 18. I don't know.
Quiet, please.
All right, I want to welcome in our first guest to start season 2 of Quiet Please, Joe LaCava, caddy for Patrick Cantlay, number 5 ranked player in the world. Joe, thanks for joining me.
John, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to you. We've done this a couple years ago. I've always enjoyed walking the golf course with you, running to you. We've been in the same group a couple times over the years and stuff. So, so just so people know, I said you're with Patrick now, but then obviously had a nice run with Tiger there for a while. And then before that, your boy, Freddie Couples. So, I was doing some calculations. I feel like you've been at this for like 5 decades now. Am I right in saying that?
It's a long time, John, whatever it is. It's funny because Tommy Fleetwood, we were paired with him last week, and he asked me the same thing. And I said, I don't even know if you were born when I started, Tommy. But yeah, I got started back in 1987. Like you just mentioned, fortunate to work for, not only great players, but great guys, throughout my entire career. So feel very fortunate. Been doing it a long time. I just love it. So that's why I'm still at it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you kind of like when you look back on that, what feeling comes to mind? And it sounds like just fortunate. And I'm sure when you started, and who did you start with before Freddie? Like who was that first bag?
My very first bag was Ken Green in 1987. And we had a 3-year run, and he played very well. He actually made a Ryder Cup team and won 3 times in those 3 years. So like I said, may not be a name everyone knows, but he had a nice career, won 5 times total. So again, just in a fortunate spot to work for a lot of great players.
And so then when you maybe look back on that, and then now here we are, what's your philosophy on caddying been, if there is one?
For me, I always tell everybody, for me, it's just like any other job, probably just, work your butt off, work as hard as you can. And the caddying part, is gotten easier because the books are certainly more detailed. You don't have to do quite as much as work as when we talked about back in the so-called day. But my philosophy is like, always be positive, work as hard as you possibly can, and just be nice to everyone. And I think so far that's worked out pretty well for me.
I say so too. So then, but one of the components of that isn't in the book, that comes with time, that some people have and some people don't, is this ability to perform in these pressure moments. And obviously the golfers are hitting the shots, but we're right there alongside with them. And, there's an art to that. How do you approach those pressure moments?
I kind of thrive on them because I think that's why we're all out here. You want your guy to succeed, and I get it. Like you said, we're never hitting a shot, but you are a part of it. There's 150 guys to start. So, it's tough to only have one winner. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. So you're not, I consider, top 5 or top 10 as a really good week regardless, but ultimately you want to win. But, again, I'm fortunate to work for a lot of great players who are very good players and very good players in the clutch. But I also feel like, when that heat is on and when the moment's big, I get so jacked up. You feel like you rise to the occasion just like your player does. You got to stay calm a little bit because your player may get a little nervous and vice versa. A quick funny story is I actually, in 2019 when Tiger won the Masters and we had a little bit of a wait on 15, I was I was trying to stay calm because now we're starting to feel it. Brooks has got a putt down there, which I actually thought was for birdie because he hit it so close, but it was actually for eagle. And that's not a fun spot to be sitting around waiting when you got a 5-iron in your hand, on a tight lie, overwatered, long is not great either. Fortunately, Tiger had a pretty good yardage and he's been there and done that. He's won 4 before that. So I think at that moment he was a little calmer than I was. I was kind of circling the wagons, as we say, just kind of, there's nothing to do. Well, what are you supposed to say to your guy? I mean, we had a little conversation trying to keep it light, but it's a tough shot and a big shot. So I found, in that particular instance, I don't want to use the word nervous, but I was anxious. I wanted to get the shot over with. You feel like that's the last shot that, you can find trouble. Like I said, you catch a little heavy, it's in the water. You catch a little thin, it's over the green. And with that back left pin, it's not fun from anywhere but on the green. But, to Tiger's credit, he had a great shot about 35 feet right of the hole and made an easy 2-putt.
That's funny you say, and you're right. That is like one of the hardest shots in golf. And I've had a chance to caddy there one time, and I remember with John Merrick, and we had kind of the shot on 13 a couple holes before the hanging lie, and we're in between clubs and stuff. And that was my first time that I'd been there. And I remember after the fact, we were with Jeff Ogilvy, Squirrel, his longtime caddy, and he kind of was giving me some crap afterwards. He's like, I could tell you were a little bit nervous there. And I was like, you're right, dude. I was, like that's not easy stuff, but you get through it and you hope that it turns out well.
Right.
I want to ask you a little bit then about Patrick, because that's who you're with right now. How did arranging that job happen? Because I think that for a lot of people, there was some talk about that. Like you were kind of with Tiger, but Tiger wasn't playing. And then, Patrick opened up. How did that all go down?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, Tiger had been telling me for a couple of years now, kind of like Fred did at the end of his career. Listen, I don't know how much I'm going to play, when I'm going to play, how often I'm going to play. If you can find something out there that you want to do or work for someone else that's going to play full time, have at it. I didn't do that. I was content and happy working for Tiger. He was treating me very well. But in the back of my mind, after a couple of years of just kind of not doing a whole lot, I kind of wanted to get back in the game. I realized how much I missed it. I enjoyed being home, getting stuff done around the house, spending time with the family. We all get that, but you can only do that for so long. So I wasn't seeking anything out, but then, Patrick approached me and said, would you be interested in caddying for me full time on the tour? And at the time, like I said, it kind of caught me by surprise because no one had been calling or looking. And I said to myself, probably this is my opportunity. I mean, there's only so many bags out there. He's a good, young, healthy player. So it was a tough decision to make because, like I said, my loyalty was with Tiger because he treated me so well for 8 or 10 years previous. But at the same time, I knew in the back of my mind, this was going to make me happiest by working again full time. So that's kind of how it went down.
Sure. That makes sense. And I mean, obviously Patrick's a great player and has a lot of experience now. So it's like, that's a nice one to hop onto.
Right.
You guys have yet to notch a win. It's coming. I don't think there's been more than 15 tournaments together so far. What's impressed you about his game now that you've been on the bag?
He drives it great. He drives it straight. He may not be the longest guy out there, but he drives it very, very well. So he's got a great combination of length, not super long, but length and accuracy. First things first. He pitches the ball great. Obviously, he can roll it, like you said. Same thing. He's not afraid of the moment. I think he relishes the big moment. He has set high goals, wants to play well, wants to win, and he hits very, very solid shots. And he can hit it both ways, which I love. He doesn't always have to draw or a cut. He can hit high and low. And I've seen him hit, like you said, it's only been 10, 11 tournaments, but I've seen him hit enough shots where I know he can basically pull off any shot he wants. And obviously, I think he's going to be very clutch in tough moments like we talked about a minute ago. But overall, I mean, there's no weakness to his game. And like I said, I always start with guys that drive it well. The accuracy thing is big for me, hitting fairways, and he's got enough length. And he's a fierce competitor.
So Freddie, I feel like, was long, but he hit a lot of fairway. I mean, driver was a strength of his. Tiger got knocked for a little while on his accuracy, but when you were working for him, do you feel like he was hitting a lot more fairways?
For sure. I think, I caught Tiger obviously a little later on in life when he maybe slowed it down a little bit, and then obviously he had the back problem, so he couldn't really swing at it like he probably did back in his heyday. Obviously, the guy won, however many tournaments, kind of hitting all over the map. But when I got him, he was much more, very similar to what you just got through saying. Very similar to Fred in the fact that he still hit it long enough. I mean, obviously, when he's in his 40s, so it's not going to hit it super long, but hit it long enough and certainly hit more fairways when I had Tiger. And but, again, the same thing. I mean, he's a guy that somehow can get it done whether he hits it in the fairway or not. But obviously, the game's a lot easier from the fairway.
Well, yeah, then I want to talk about Tiger some more later, but also just on Tiger in the trees and just creating shots. I mean, maybe you have a good story or just overall, just like, man, we're in jail here, and just watching him carve stuff and bend stuff and how impressive that is.
I got spoiled first with Fred for 20 years because there was no shot he couldn't take on. He could hit a low cut and make a cut, 40, 50 yards, high draw, whatever you name it, he could do it, and he could kind of see it. And that's kind of how Fred played, a lot of feel. He would feel a shot, remember a shot that he hit back in the past, whether it was good, bad, or different from the woods or not from the woods. And Tiger the same way. There's no chip out in those guys. They can feel and see a shot. You asked for a quick story. I hate to keep going back to the Masters that he won, but it's always popping in my brain. But in 2019, he hit it left into the trees on 14. And, you can see it on TV, how difficult it looks. But until you're actually in those trees, I don't think you can really appreciate what's going on. In both times, he had a very small window, maybe a 6-foot diameter, which I could see him looking up at the trees. And I know that's the route he's going. So not only do you have to hit that 6-foot diameter, which is maybe 40 yards in front of you, now he's trying to hit enough club to get to the green. He doesn't want to just get it out of the trees. He wants to get it on the green. Long story short, both times he pulled it off. He made a couple, medium length putts and made birdie from both spots. And I tell people, you can make 4, 5, and 6 from there. So for him to make 6 total, he picked up at least 2 or 3 shots on the field. And when you look back at stuff like that, those are the things that win you the golf tournament. I think on Saturday, the next day, he, of course, hit it in the middle of the fairway and made par. And I kind of looked over and I said, you've been better off in the trees. And we kind of laughed about that. So those guys can pull off any shot they want.
That's a great comment there. I mean, that kind of shows you why you're good at what you do. But when you go back in the trees there in those 2 situations, just take us inside the ropes or outside the ropes there. Is he checking in with you, or are you merely, is he saying anything to you? Or are you merely just gauging how he's saying things and how he's looking at it? And if he looks like he's got a look in his eye, you're like, hey, we're going with this no matter what.
No, you hit it right on the head. I mean, once those guys start looking up and they see that shot and they see the window that they have, you're not trying to call them off the ledge. I mean, if it looks like it's impossible, I may step in and say something. But in both cases, I knew he was a man on a mission and he was going to hit that shot regardless of what I said. And here's the other thing. As a caddy, if it looks impossible or not the right move, of course, you got to step in and say something. But having worked for Tiger enough to see him pull this shot off before, now you have confidence in him. And at the same time, you don't want to go over there and say, hey, pro, listen, you may not be able to pull this shot off. You don't want any negative thoughts either, right? So, like I said, once I see him eyeballing up in the tree where he's going with it, I leave him alone.
Right, yeah. Well, let's get back on Pat then a little bit. I want to talk about the Ryder Cup briefly, and I don't want to put you on the spot on anything, but I do want to hear you describe what the competitive nature and emotion of those matches and that event are like.
Listen, we got beat by 5 or 6 points. So to sit here and say I had a great time is kind of going to sound weird, but I had a great time. It starts for me, and I'll get into the golf course part of it in a minute, but it starts for me getting to know the caddies that you're working with a little bit more because you're in that setting. You're out to the golf course, walking the course together, you're sharing information. So first and foremost, hanging with the caddies, hanging with their wives, hanging with my wife, everyone getting to know each other, having a good time. You always have a blast at the end of the week. And now it stinks to lose, obviously, and get our butts kicked. That's no fun. But when it's all said and done, it's one of the best weeks of the year. Pat played pretty well. I think what hurt the U.S. team the most was the fact that I think most of them had 5 or 6 weeks off before they went in there. You can only do so much at home. There's nothing like playing tournament golf. So I think that layoff probably hurt us a little bit. But I could see each day, at least Pat getting a little bit better and rising to the occasion over the weekend. We go down 4-0, so we're down big early on, but you never give up. And to Pat's credit, he played much better as the weekend went on. And obviously, with the match on Saturday afternoon, emotions were running high. But everything's good now. Everything's fine. I mean, like I said, they kicked our butt, and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah, I remember watching it from home, and I got up to watch it. And when I saw Victor Hovland chip in on the green on the first hole, I was like, oh, my gosh, like this. The things you see in that, guys, when they're playing for themselves, they do amazing things, and it's a little different. And then when you put them on a team, and I've never done the team thing. I've played in some, team events where we've got a partner, but it seems like they do even greater stuff at times.
Yeah, no question. Like you said, I'm working it, so I don't see the shots maybe till afterwards, or I maybe hear about it. But like you said, the chip in from, he's on the green, right? He chips it in, and then you saw, I think Rahm chipped in from over the green on 16, I believe. So, you get back to the hotel and you see some of those shots, like, man, no wonder how we lost. I mean, they're making everything. And like you said, they're making shots, and I think there's a lot of momentum in team golf, right? So I'm not saying you're going to chip in because your guy just made a 40-footer the hole before, but there's just something about that. The momentum in those team events is crazy. And it's kind of contagious when your partner's doing well, or if you see a highlight, because there was a bunch of TVs out there of another group on your team making a 25, 30 footer in a clutch moment. It creates positive vibes, and somehow that translates to better golf by your teammates.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Pat on the West Coast. He's an LA guy. You guys started off in Hawaii last week. You're off this week. You're in Southern California, just hanging out. But I'm looking at how you guys have like a dozen under your belt now. You've had a lot of success caddying on the West Coast. Pat is very familiar with the West Coast. Are you guys playing everything in California to start the season?
He's obviously not playing this week, but he's going to play I call it the Bob Hope, the MX next week in Palm Springs, which he's done very well at. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, I remember the days of probably worked 18 or 20 straight of those with Fred. So I love it out in the desert as well. It's been a while, but good memories with Fred playing there. I think he won a playoff event over Bruce Litsky back in the day. And I think Pat's either going to play Torrey or Phoenix, but not both. And then he's going to go up to Pebble for the signature event, and then he's going to play Genesis at Riv, which he loves. So, like you said, we haven't broken through yet, but I think it's coming soon. He's playing well, and like you said, he's a California guy, so he loves these events. And he's had past success, so I'm hoping for the same thing this year.
So just to bounce over to Freddie for a second, he told a great story. The Champions Tour put it out on their feed last week. I don't know. Did you catch this at all?
I didn't. I don't get out much.
So he's telling this story about how the first week you're on the bag for him and at the Hope, and he picks you up at your hotel or your house, wherever you're staying, and he lives there. He's like 8 miles from Bermuda Dunes. You guys are going to Bermuda Dunes, and he gets lost going to it. And he said you were riding shotgun, and you were absolutely livid at him, yelling like, I can't believe that you are lost. You live here. What are we doing? And just like, this is your first week on the bag with this guy. And I knew you knew each other, but can you fill in the blanks on that story a little bit more?
No, but it's funny. It's actually a true story. And, I was dumbfounded. I mean, this is back in the day, John, as you know, 1990, there's no such thing as a cell phone. So you couldn't just put it in your phone. And as you know, us traveling as caddies, we had a little map, flying to LA and you drive to Palm Springs. So there's no detailed map of Palm Springs. So I don't know the area that well either. But, when he volunteered to drive and pick me up, I thought, okay, he knows the area. He lives at Mission Hills. How hard could it be to find Bermuda Dunes, right? And, for me, I obviously don't have, I don't have any tolerance for, dumb things, and I don't have much patience, as my family will tell you. But to sit there shotgun with him, I'm thinking to myself, thank God it's Monday and not Wednesday. We're trying to make our tea time, right? So he is driving all over the place, and that's back in the day when he actually had to stop and ask people. So from that day forward, it lasted 20 years. I never let him drive again.
That's amazing. You picked him up every day of his career when you were caddying for him.
Day and night. So I would start the day, pick him up, drop him off, and they said, "What time are you coming back for dinner?" And if there's 7 days in every week, I probably had dinner with him five times a week, which was great looking back. I mean, we always had fun. We always watched sports on TV. We had a blast together.
That's great. I love that story. Well, and then one more thing on swinging back to Pat. Then it's you and Fred. You were on the bag for a couple Masters with him. You referenced earlier Tiger in 2019. Pat's played well at the Masters before. I said earlier, hey, I've been there. I remember Jamie Mulligan, who's Patrick's coach, being there with Merrick when I was there. I know Jamie's got a good feel for that place. So I know you're just looking forward to next week in the Bob Hope, but you can't help but be a little bit excited about thinking about getting back to Augusta in April when you guys get there.
Regardless of what you're doing or who you're working for, you look forward to that week more than probably any week, on the entire calendar. And like you said, I've been fortunate to work for those guys that won Augusta. I think Pat's obviously had some success there as well. So I'm looking forward to getting back there. I think Pat is too. I think he knows at the back of his mind he's at that age and that time where he'd certainly like to win a major. Easier said than done. It's not easy. You got deep fields and stuff like that, and plenty of great guys playing that tournament. But I think we both are looking forward to it. But like you said, first things first, let's see what we can do on the West Coast. I'm looking forward to TPC as well. I think it's another great golf course for Pat. So I think there's a lot of good golf coming up for this kid. For sure.
All right. Well, let's move on to Tiger a little bit more specifically. How did you get that job with Tiger? And I want to hear your version. And I want to tell you a little bit about how I tried to jump in there for a second. So you go ahead and you tell me how that job came about.
That's a great question. I don't really know. I was working for Fred on the senior tour at the time, and then I switched over briefly to Dustin Johnson for about 6 months in 2011, I believe it was. And then, one day I got a call from Mark Steinberg, who's Tiger's longtime agent. And he said, I'm doing my due diligence here. You're the first call I'm making. Tiger asked me to get a hold of you. We know you've, worked for Fred for 20 years, so we know you a little bit. And I've known Steiny for a long time. And you have a good gig, obviously, with Dustin Johnson right now. But, Tiger asked me to reach out and call you. So he did. He called me, and I talked to Steiny, and I said, yes, I'm interested. I mean, it's Tiger Woods. How could I not be interested, right? And, like I said, I had a great gig going with Dustin, and, he obviously became a great player and already was a great player. And we had a nice 6-month run together, but there's only one Tiger Woods. So I could not turn that down. And I thought to myself, if I tell Tiger, can you hang on, wait another couple of months? I don't think he's going to go for that either, right? So I made the decision on that call with Steiny that day that I was going to accept the job that was offered to me.
Yeah.
And then Steiny says, okay, well, now that you're interested, I want to pass along Tiger's number and let you talk to him, and you guys can kind of talk about it because I'm kind of out of the mix now. My job was to see if you were interested. And I talked to Tiger. I don't remember the day or the time or whatever, but it was over the weekend sometime. And we had a nice 20, 30-minute call. I would say we talked 2 minutes about golf / caddying. The rest of the time was family stuff about his kids, my kids. We had a couple things in common. Both our dads were in the military or the Army. Both of our dads died kind of young of cancer. And, he knew I was a competitive guy, sports guy and stuff like that. So we had a lot of stuff in common that maybe we did know until this conversation. And I don't think that helped me get the job. But the fact that we had stuff in common, non-golf, was great. We could talk about other things. And then he hired me. It wasn't one of those things where let's just try it out kind of thing. He didn't say the job is yours either, but at the same time, I didn't think it was a trial thing.
Right.
And I think he appreciated the fact that, I had Dustin Johnson. So I'm taking a little bit of a, not a risk, but he was coming off injuries and stuff like that. So anyways, he ended up winning, I think, his own tournament, 2 or 3 tournaments in, and then from there on we were off to the races.
Yeah, so I remember when you were with DJ, because I think I was caddying for Brett Wederick at the time. This might have been 2011 or something, and we got paired with you, and I think that's who I was with at the time. But you gotta fast forward, because I don't know if I'm mixing up the years or what, but I was at 2013 PGA Championship, and I was rooming with my buddy Pepsi Steve, who ended up going on. He was on the bag that week for Keegan Bradley's win. I think that was 2013. I don't know if that sounds right or not, but and Tiger that week had his buddy Jerry Chang. Is that his name? Jerry Chang?
Jerry Chang, right.
Yeah, Jerry Chang on the bag that week. And so I'm there and I'm like, and I was with Kevin Chappell and he was like 10th alternate in the tournament, but I had a credential and Kevin wasn't even there. So I was like, I'm just going to hang out, whatever. And everybody's wondering, like, who's Tiger going to hire? Who's Tiger going to hire? And I kind of cooked up in my head. I was like, well, I'm going to at least say hi to him. So I was like Tuesday night and I was in the parking lot and they had that champions dinner thing for the PGA guys. And so I was just kind of milling around, and out front door walks Tiger and John Daly and John Daly's girlfriend and maybe Mickelson and David Toms. And they're all kind of just like walking towards the cars, and I'm standing there, and sure enough, Tiger kind of peeled off, and I went up to him and I just said hi to him and introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, who are you working for?" And I said, "Hey, Kevin Chappell this week, but he's 10th alternate." And he goes, "Oh, well, hey, John Daly got in, one time as 10th alternate." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." And I said, "Hey, I just want to introduce myself, and here's my number if you need anything." And I never heard from him, and obviously, I mean, gosh, you can't hire anybody better than you, and it was probably already a done deal before that. But I thought I'd throw my name in the hat, so that's my run in with him, 10 years ago.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, you got nothing to lose, right?
Right. Yeah.
You can't win if you don't play, like the old Lotto thing.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot.
Yeah, you got to give it a shot for sure.
Yeah. So then tell me, when you first got on his bag, what was that like from being in his group, being paired with him, to now being on his bag? What did you notice? Yeah.
Well, the first thing I noticed was how low maintenance the guy is. I thought to myself, geez, it's Tiger Woods. He's going to have a million people around, so on and so forth. Basically, he had a golf coach that wasn't there all the time. His agent, Mark Steinberg, who's an incredible agent, but stayed out of his business for the most part. So a lot of times it was just him and I kind of hanging out, doing our golf thing and stuff like that. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I wasn't nervous starting out. Because it's Tiger Woods, right? You always want to do a good job and make sure you're doing all the things correct and whatever. So, I mean, you're going to make mistakes 100%, but maybe I was over prepared the first couple tournaments. I don't know, but I was very nervous and very anxious. And then those two things struck out to me. Number one, that he was low maintenance, and the fact that he never, ever came back to me once. And I probably worked, I don't know, 10 years, but I probably only worked 100, 110 tournaments for the guy. Not one time in those 100 tournaments did he ever say to me, you got the wind wrong, you bad read, stuff like that. Almost to the point where it was too nice, because if he missed a putt, I would say, all right, what happened? Because, you're standing off to the side as a caddy. So you're not right behind him. So you can't really see what the putt does. And he'll say, I pulled it or I pushed it. And I'm usually watching the stroke. He very seldom pulls or pushes a putt. So almost like being too nice. Like, he wouldn't tell me the read was wrong. And I said, stop being so nice. I said, I kind of want to know for next time more than anything. I don't want to know if I was right or wrong necessarily. I just want to know for next time. So, takes ownership of everything. Incredible to work for those 100 tournaments in those 10 years, and took great care of me. But again, I'm rambling on, but I was anxious, but it took me 2 or 3 tournaments to settle in and realize, listen, we're going to get along great here. Quick funny story. I think it was the end of 2011. He played the Fry's tournament. And for the first 13 or 14 holes, I wasn't in the game at all, which was fine. I thought, even for 2 rounds, I was happy to just not do anything and just kind of watch and absorb it all. And we get to a par 3 on the back. I don't remember, 14, 15, somewhere in that area. And we had like 176 yards to the hole, and it was like a 2-tiered green. And I think we had like 170 on top, and then 6 more to the pin. And so I give him all the numbers, and he hadn't really asked me anything all day. So it kind of caught me off guard, although I think I was ready. He said to me, can I get 7-iron there? And I said, you can get it to the top. You can get up on top, but you can't get it to the hole. And so he has this beautiful little tight draw, 10 feet right of the hole, pin high, beautiful shot. And he just kind of gave me a look without saying anything, as if to say, don't ever tell me I can't do something. And, I got that look and I thought it was great. It's like, you know what? I'm almost going to show off here. So wait. So about 4 minutes later, we walk up to the green and the ball is barely short of pin high. So I look at him. I said, well, it's not pin high. and he smiled at me. So I knew, it's almost like I'm one day in and I'm giving him a hard time after he gave me a hard time. And he smiles. So it was like one of those things. Right away, we clicked and we knew we were going to be able to get along very well and give each other a hard time, which we still do to this day.
Well, yeah, that was what my next question was going to be, actually, was just about his sense of humor. And we kind of hear stories about that, when things are reported. But, you're on the bag there, you're inside the ropes with him. What can you say about his sense of humor and what people maybe don't know?
Same as mine, kind of a dry sense of humor, likes to give the needle a little bit, stuff like that. Not afraid to smile and laugh. The thing with Tiger is, he's got to have that guard up, right? I mean, who can you trust? Who can you not trust? I felt like early on he trusted me. He knows I'm going to take things to my grave and never tell anybody anything that I shouldn't tell. So I felt like that trust factor was there right away. And like I said, I mean, you get him in a setting where he knows the people, can trust the people, he can let loose a little bit and have a little bit of fun. People don't see that, which is fine. I mean, that's unfortunately the life that he has to live. But when you get him behind the scenes and get him a little bit loose, it's a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah. So I was scrolling yesterday. Jack Nicklaus did an interview with Rich Lerner, and it was a good interview. And Rich kind of talked to him about his major record, and then we kind of brought up Tiger's, and Jack basically said, he felt bad for Tiger that he got injured and stuff, but that he kind of felt good about his number at 18, that Tiger probably wasn't going to catch that. And I know back in 2016, Tiger kind of said to Charlie Rose on his show, he was like, hey, I think I'm going to get there. And a lot of things have happened since then. And I guess, what are your thoughts on just where he is now and the possibility of even like tying Jack, and then just how that felt to be a part of him getting to number 15?
Yeah, I mean, you can never write off Tiger, right? People have tried to do that for the last 5-8 years now, and that hasn't worked out for those people that wrote him off. Is it a tall task? Sure. He's 48 years old, obviously a ton of injuries. I do know he's a lot healthier than he was, say, 6 months ago. So never say never. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I wouldn't be surprised or shocked either if he won another one and maybe got to 18. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And, he's the kind of guy where he can still hit all the shots. He's still long enough. He can still putt like there's no tomorrow. So could it happen? Sure. I don't know what the odds would be, but I certainly wouldn't write the guy off. And then to be a part of the Masters win, his 15th major, for me was incredible. I mean, as a caddy, you're fortunate enough to win any tournament with your guy. and then obviously a major on top of it. And then if you had to pick one, for me anyways, it would probably be Augusta or the British Open. So to sit there and say you win with Tiger Woods, who, is one of the two or the greatest player of all time, incredible moment for me.
Yeah. And previous to that, that was an iconic moment on its own. Because it was just so emotional for everybody, because everybody was rooting for him that were in the golf world. And you could tell how much it meant to him. It was a different Tiger Woods than maybe we were used to 10 years prior. But before that tour championship win happened in Atlanta, and the people are like falling behind you guys up the 18th and all that. Does Augusta happen that next spring if the tour championship doesn't? How much did that impact that?
That's a great question. I've never really thought it that way. Obviously, Tiger played great that entire year. He made that nice run at the PGA and almost ran down Brooks. Made a nice run on Sunday at the British Open. So, we got to the tour championship, he was running out of chances. And if you don't win there, you feel like you had a pretty disappointing year, even though you had a pretty solid year because you didn't get breakthrough and get into the winner's circle. So I knew it was in the back of his mind that he just wanted to win a tournament. It didn't matter which one. Obviously, it came down to the tour championship. Everyone remembers what happened on 18, incredible moment. I think Tiger won from start to finish, which he's done many a times. But, as a caddy, you don't work for guys that do it that often. So that was kind of a little fun side note. But, yeah, obviously that gives you a ton of confidence going into the offseason, into the following season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he didn't play that much early on in 2019 because he never does. So I was a little leery of the fact that he hadn't played that much. And he played decent, but I didn't think he had enough reps to be sharp enough and ready enough to win at Augusta. But then we got to the match play, and I saw his game start to come around. There was a stretch, I think, on Friday of about 27 holes where he might have made like 10 or 12 birdies. And you could see his game was coming on and was coming on and coming on. And then I always look back at the fact that we lost Saturday afternoon to get to the Final Four on Sunday. But looking back, it was almost a blessing because I think if he plays 36 on Saturday and 36 on Sunday, which you have to on Sunday, even if you lose your morning match, it might have been trouble for him from a physical standpoint getting ready for Augusta. Still disappointed as can be on that Saturday afternoon, but I saw him hitting shots on the range, getting ready for rounds, and then he would take a little bit of time. He couldn't practice a lot because of injuries, but he took a little bit of time after each round that week and went to the range, and you could see he was hitting shots. You could see he was hitting 3 or 4 3-woods and rehearsing for the shot he had to hit on 10 or the shot he had to hit on 13 and stuff like that. So I knew he was gearing up for that on that range and pulling those shots off. And that's when I kind of got excited. I said, okay, not only do I think he's ready physically, but I think mentally now he's in the game getting ready for Augusta.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I opened up some questions to a couple friends of mine or people on Twitter and stuff. And one that I thought was kind of interesting was you're talking about being on the range and watching them and stuff. What were those off weeks and off days like when you maybe would go down to Florida to be with him to get ready for a tournament? When you're kind of away from the limelight, away from the crowds, and what were those like? And then what's he trying to figure out in his game before he leaves for a tournament?
I'll start with the fact that he's in the gym a lot, right? He's trying to get ready for rounds, trying to get stronger, trying to rehab and stuff like that. So I don't think people appreciate how much he had to do before a round. Even if we were just going to go out to medals and hit balls or maybe playing 9 holes, he had to go through a lot in the gym just to get ready for that. That's when it kind of dawned on me, this guy's going through a lot just to get ready to play maybe 9 holes. So he'd always be in the gym early on, warming up, practicing, rehabbing, stuff like that. And then we'd go to medalist or we'd go to the backyard, spend a lot of time in the backyard, chipping and putting, getting ready for tournaments. And he would rehearse things down there. Like he would make sure he warmed up for 45 minutes, then maybe go putt for 10 minutes, just like he was doing in a real round. And then he would try to simulate a round. And, when he's down at medalist, normally if he's just practicing and trying to get ready for a tournament, he may jump in a cart and stuff like that and play in 2.5 hours. But, we kind of make it our purpose to walk and simulate a round that we'd have at Augusta so that he could be on his feet for 5 hours and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So he'd play with his buddy Rob just to slow the round down a little bit, stuff like that. So he was very aware of what he had to do the following week when he was practicing at home the week before.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Rob there, and I had a question about that. Can you categorize what Rob's and Tiger's relationship is like and how that maybe came to be or what it is currently? And then Rob was on the bag kind of at Tiger's tournament, I guess. And do you have any inkling on who Tiger might be, if they're going to stay together for this upcoming season or any insights there?
Yeah, Rob, I think was with IMG way back in the day, and I think when Tiger broke from IMG, I think both Rob and Steiny left to go to work for Tiger. So Rob does. I call Rob the everything guy. He works in the office, does a lot of stuff, contract stuff. Whatever it takes for Tiger. He does, like I said, contract stuff. Golf course stuff, day in and day out kind of stuff. And so he's also a very good college golfer, accomplished golfer, played in college. So I think Tiger pretty much plays every round of golf in Florida with Rob, because Rob is sort of a little bit of his eyes and swing consultant now. He doesn't really have a coach per se, but he knows Tiger's swing inside and out. And like I said, plays every round of golf with him. So he's there just to kind of as eyes and ears for Tiger. And like I said, is everything guy. I talked to him after the Bahamas. He said he was a little worn out, but he had a great time caddying for him. I'm not sure what Tiger's going to do going forward caddy wise. I'm sure Rob will be involved. May not be every tournament he plays, but I'm sure he's going to be available to work if he needs him. That kind of a thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
One other question that somebody had is, and we'll move on a little bit. What's the strangest thing Tiger keeps in his golf bag?
It's funny you say that, because people ask me that stuff. I know he has old coins that his dad gave him.
Yeah.
And I think Fred actually was the same way, maybe the 1920s or 30s kind of coin. So I think that's basically the only thing. He's got 2 or 3 sandwiches in there, which I think they all do now, but nothing really strange. I mean, Tiger was always great. If it wasn't going to rain, get rid of the umbrella, get rid of the rain gear. So we didn't have much in the bag.
Yeah.
And with Fred, it was always, he loved the chipped tees. So he'd have all his tees were chipped.
Really?
And when you hit a shot, they chip a little bit. And then he got to the point where sometimes I wasn't sure the ball was going to stay on the tee. But that's kind of what Fred loved to do. And I don't know if it was a less friction thing or not, but that's just what he did.
He liked to whittle away at him.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I saw your son caddying last summer on the Corn Ferry Tour. Very nice kid. I walked a couple holes with him in Colorado, I think. What advice have you given him as he's gone out and started caddying? And what's his plan to kind of start the year?
Yeah, I told him, I said, listen, you got to go out there like we talked when we first got on here. I said, you got to work really hard. Walk the course as many times as you can, because every time you walk, you're going to find something different on there, right? And don't be afraid to hustle and work very hard. The other thing I told him is, I said, listen, you got to stay very, very positive. You got to be loyal to your guy. I said, at times it can get frustrating. Like I worked a lot of years for Fred where you hit it great. And you always feel like you didn't get enough out of the round. So I said, stay as positive you can. Keep your guy positive. And again, work your butt off, and you got to earn it. And he's going back on the Corn Ferry Tour with Logan McAllister for a second year, and try to figure it out and see if this is A, what you want to do, and B, meet some people. That's why you're out there. And again, just be nice to people.
For sure. Yeah, he's definitely doing that. So then last time you and I caught up, it was kind of on the heels of the father-son, and, you were out there caddying for Tiger, and your son was caddying for Charlie. And you just talked about how cool of an experience that was. And I think everybody loves watching Tiger and Charlie and their mannerisms and stuff. A couple years later now, Charlie's a little bit older. He's a little bit bigger. His golf game's coming along, I guess. Like we said previously, we don't want to start here and making all these proclamations about him. He's certainly going to get some opportunities to play some golf. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing and the progress of his game from afar?
Yeah, like you said, he's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. I think he's hitting at a legit 280 to 290, maybe 300 yards. He's 14 years old, freshman in high school. So, like you said, he's gaining great experience. He's got his dad as his eyes and ears, and his teacher. I think he's getting to that age where now he's kind of listening to his dad. You go through that period where you don't want to listen to anybody, right?
Right.
So now I think he's listening to his dad, which obviously will help. Listen, like you said, I don't want to go crazy. He's 14 or 15 years old. He's a freshman in high school, but the genes have been passed down. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. The ball striking like the old man, drives it great. He actually probably drives it straighter than Tiger. It just hits everything so solid, which is what I'm impressed about. Yeah, he can hit a funky shot here and there. We all can.
Right.
But the fact that he makes such solid contact with every club in the bag, for the most part, every time he swings, that to me is amazing at that age. And I think the fact that, his dad will show him different shots, and he's learning and listening to him now, I think the sky's the limit for the kid.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's move on a little bit more, maybe get a little bit of Freddie stuff and then some odds and ends. But I was thinking about this too. I mean, Freddie, Seattle, Washington, West Coast guy. Tiger, from SoCal, West Coast guy. Patrick Cantlay from SoCal, West Coast guy. Yeah, even DJ spent a lot of time in SoCal, and I'm sure you got some other names in there. I don't know where Greeny was from and stuff, but here you are. You're a New Jersey guy. You're an East Coast guy. You kind of say it how it is. Those guys are a little bit more laid back. How has that meshed well for you over the years?
That's a great question. You're right. I do tell it like it is, like it or not. And I think those guys appreciate that. Like you talked about Fred. I mean, he's cool, just a cool cat, kind of laid back, strolling down the fairways. But I will say this about Fred. I mean, he's burning inside too. He wants to win just as much as the next guy. He may just not show it outwardly. Obviously, Tiger's the opposite. He's going to show his emotions, right? He's going to get fired up and, good, bad, or different. He doesn't throw clubs anymore, but he's going to let you know how he's feeling, right? And Dustin, you go back to Dustin, he's kind of laid back and stuff like that. So I think the fact that, I could use the word obnoxious maybe. Maybe I'm a little of that Northeast obnoxious or whatever, confident kind of person. I think maybe that's a good mix with the guys that I've worked for. Pat, he's same way. He's kind of laid back as well too. But I mean, he's inside burning up. Very smart, intelligent guy. Always thinking, processing stuff. Loves the information. He's the new breed, I call him. With the TrackMan all the time and the high tech stuff and the spin rate and all that kind of stuff. So he's always doing that kind of stuff, which I'm not used to that for my other guys. So it's definitely a mixed bag. As you work for different guys, you kind of have to adapt to their personalities and vice versa. But so far, so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get a little bit of a take on, I don't want to say live or everything, but I mean, sports are changing everywhere. I mean, look at college, NIL, and everything's just really changing rapidly. What's your take on the overall state of the professional game to start the year here? Like, let's just start where we are right now. And then are you optimistic that the golf fan that's sitting at home watching golf is going to be happy with things in the next year or two?
That's obviously another great question. I'm on a couple threads, and most of my guys are golf guys. So I think they're watching the golf, especially, I'm from the Northeast. So they're looking for some good weather, just even if it's on TV to watch golf. Yeah. So, I think my guys are still tuning in. We do talk. We go out and have a couple beers, and they say, what's going on with this guy or that guy? So, obviously, I think anyone that's a sports fan, like you said, would always want the best players playing at the same time, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious in any sport, and certainly with golf being an individual sport. You want John Rahm and Dustin and Brooks and those guys competing against Pat and Schauffele and Scheffler and stuff like that. So, I would like to think that someday it's going to get all. When I say all resolved, it's going to be resolved to the fact where I think we're back playing together. All the great players in the world are playing at the same time. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but I think the guys, at the top or in the front office, so to speak, will get it done and make it happen. But I think at the same time, I mean, you look back last week in Maui. I mean, Chris Kirk's a heck of a player. Sahith looked like coming into his own. So I think it was a good finish. You got Hovland up there. You got Colin up there. Pat played well. X played well. Scheffler was in the mix for a while. So there's still a lot of great names playing well on the PGA Tour. You may be missing a few names, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But I don't think people are not watching because of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's build the perfect golfer real quick. I got the best driver, irons, wedges, short game putting, and then 6 inches between the ears. And we'll just say you can't use the same guy twice. Who's the best driver that you've seen?
Of all time?
Just that you've maybe been around or seen, let's keep it from you.
Yeah. Best driver. I'm going to say Fred Couples.
Freddie, that makes sense. And irons?
Tiger Woods. That's easy. Okay.
What about wedges?
Well, you like when you say 120, 130 yards wedges?
Yeah, scoring club.
Steve Stricker.
Gotcha. Okay, now short game, chipping and pitching and
not because I'm working for the guy, but Pat's got a great short game. I mean, when I say, pitching and chipping, great imagination, can hit all the shots. From what I've seen, it's been a small sample size, but he's fantastic.
Right. So then we got two here that you could, I think you could throw Tiger in, but I didn't let you. So right. If you could say putting and then 6 inches between the ears, a couple other names.
Yeah. Well, obviously you made a good call on not using a guy twice. So, because I would use Tiger for both of those. Putting. Guy that I haven't used.
There's a guy that comes to mind for both these. I'd be curious to your take is Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, no, I listen. when you mentioned that, as soon as I said Pat, which I still want to say Pat, the pitching and everything else, Jordan Spieth, obviously you watch some of the shots he hits around the greens are incredible. So let's use Jordan Spieth. Not that we have to use Jordan Spieth. I mean, for putting, because the guy can make 30, 40 footers and in clutch moments, and he's not afraid of the moment. So let's go with Jordan Spieth with the putting.
And then in between the years.
In between the years, let's see. I always want to go with the newer guys because I love the young newer guys. I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele.
Okay, I like that. New big year incoming for Xander. What's your favorite caddy nickname of all time?
Wow. Wow, that's a good one. There are so many good ones. Let's see. Wow. I mean, there's a guy. I mean, the guy is a great guy. I don't know if he's still around. Work with me, Larry.
Work with me, Larry. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. He's just one of those guys, a great guy, old school, very gruff. And, his famous name was work with me a little bit here. So work with me, Larry.
I like that. All right. And then should the Giants keep Daniel Jones as their quarterback?
Listen, I tell people all the time, I'm a believer in whoever's under center for the Giants, good, bad, or indifferent. I think Jones has got a ton of talent. The offensive line is probably the weakest part of the team, unfortunately. And as you know, in the NFL, if you don't have lines, you can't win any games. Yep. So I'd like to see him build a little better line around him and see what he's got. So I'm saying keep him.
Love it. All right. So I know you're on the Giants beat all the time. So, hey, Joe, thank you for taking some time this morning and your week off. We're looking forward to following Pat, all year long and just really appreciate all you've done for caddies and for the game over the years.
Always a pleasure, John. Thanks for having me on. We miss you out here.
Yes, I would like to get back out there. Hey, LA, baby, if you hear of anybody, I'm going to be out there.
My eyes and ears open. You got it.
Please do.
All right. Thanks, John.
See you soon.